more than a century since Theodore Roosevelt broke up some of the world's largest companies, US President Donald Trump's Justice Department has started its own crackdown on what it says are Americans' modern-day robber barons.
Without the discipline of meaningful market-based competition, digital platforms may act in ways that are not responsive to consumer demands.
Calls for stricter regulations have intensified after recent privacy scandals involving Facebook. The Federal Trade Commission fined the social media giant a record $5 billion for lying to users about how their personal data is handled. The DOJ says its investigation will target the search, social media, and online retail industries, areas dominated by Google, Facebook, and Amazon. It's an issue that's garnered bipartisan support.
It has been far too long that the monopolies have been making the campaign contributions, have been funding the super PACs, have been out there making sure that their influence is heard and felt in every single decision that gets made in Washington.
Big techs also face scrutiny in Europe. The EU has fined Google close to $10 billion since 2017 for antitrust violations. Last month, the bloc also fined US chip maker Qualcomm more than $270 million for selling products below cost to snuff out smaller rivals.
We value companies for becoming successful due to their skills, due to their innovation. The problem is when a company distorts competition against the interests of consumers and the market as a whole.
Facebook is worth nearly $600 billion. Google parent Alphabet close to $800 billion, and Apple and Amazon have both touched $1 trillion in market capitalization. With those kinds of numbers, critics say governments need to go beyond the imposition of fines to get tech giants to change their ways. Mateo Juaripe, TRT World.
Well, let's get more on this now with Harold Feld in Washington, D.C. He's Senior Vice President at Public Knowledge, which advocates for an open internet and consumer rights protections. Welcome to Money Talks, Harold. Now, you've been warning about the dangers of the market dominance of the big tech sector for quite some time now. What's your reaction to this new antitrust investigation into the sector?
Well, I have to say it's very welcome. We've been wanting to see more active antitrust investigation, more oversight for some time now, particularly here in the United States. There's been a feeling among a lot of people that Europe has been really owning the antitrust space when it comes to tech for a while. So it's very good to see the Department of Justice announce that it's going to be taking a very active interest here.
So explain to us how big tech companies like Facebook, Amazon, and Google might be behaving in an anti-competitive way.
Well, yes, and it's important to understand that just having a lot of market share is not itself a violation. So when you look and you say, well, a company's got 50% or 90% or whatever the market, that alone is not sufficient to be an antitrust violation. You have to look at, is there conduct that they're engaged in that is unfairly keeping them on top. So there could be a number of possible ways in which the companies are squashing competition. It could be that they have deals with application developers that they can't use a rival, or that they have to give them superior terms. They may cut connections to potential competitors. They may be targeting potential competitors and buying them out, or using a kind of carrot and stick approach where they say, look, we'll pay you a lot of money now so that you won't become a competitor to us. But, if you don't let us buy you out, we'll just replicate the features that you have and crush you.
We obviously don't know how long this investigation will take, but by the end of it, do you anticipate that there will be some violations uncovered here?
Well, I think there are two possibilities. One is that we will find evidence of specific violations by specific companies. And there are certainly a lot of allegations out there. And one of the important things about an investigation is it lets you find out whether these allegations are true or not, whether there's evidence to support them. But the other possibility is that we may decide, hey, it doesn't violate existing antitrust law, but there really ought to be a law here that does cover this kind of behavior because we're not seeing competition. And if it's just that the sector naturally tends to monopoly, then that's when you get into sector specific regulation like we have in telecom or energy or any of these other specific areas of the economy where we say, hey, without enforcement rules and government oversight, it's just going to naturally become a monopoly.
Now, figures like the Democratic Senator Elizabeth Warren are calling for the breakup of some of these big tech companies. Is that what you would call for as well?
Well, not at this stage. I think that breakups are very hard. They are also what I call the starfish problem. If you tear up a starfish, you don't kill the starfish. The starfish regrows, or worse, you get pieces of it regrow into new starfish. So if you just break them up, if it's the underlying economics of the industry, the network effects, the way users interact with it, whatever it is, then either they'll just regrow into dominance, or worse, you'll end up with a bunch of smaller monopolies. My favorite example is, let's pretend we split up WhatsApp, Facebook, and Instagram, which a lot of people have called for. So now, instead of one big monopoly, we've got three smaller monopolies, each one in their own lane. And that helps a little, but it doesn't really help as much as comprehensive regulation would help.
Interesting. Let's see what this investigation uncovers. Harold Feld in Washington, thank you again for your time.